Hey, boss, he ain't working.
A school is going to be completely AI with no teachers, and it's opening up in Chicago. Who are the students? They must be geniuses.
They're recruiting students right now. The students are people of whose parents can afford $55,000 a year in tuition. I'll just say that for this private school. But this is a fascinating story on so many different levels. It's going to be called Alpha Schools. And Alpha Schools is a private school. I don't want to call it a chain, but it's a group of schools that exist in other states, formed out of Austin, Texas. And here's how the day works for these students. K through 8 right now, but eventually they want to make it K through 12. They do essentially all the core academic learning in 2 hours in those booths with AI. And it's very personalized. They interact with the AI. They learn their core subjects, reading, writing, arithmetic, and all the things that we learn. And then the rest of the day is left open to workshops, to entrepreneurial stuff, even for kids as young as 2nd and 3rd grade, business stuff, some arts as well. And that's where they really get their collaboration with other students and problem-solving skills in. No teachers. They are hiring, the school is currently. It's going to be downtown. They would love if you have a teaching background, but you don't have to have one. You have to have a bachelor's degree, but you don't have to have any educational experience or even a degree in education, because it's the AI doing the core learning with the student, and then it opens up the rest of the day. Look, AI is coming to our schools in one way or another. There's no doubt about it. Will teachers be okay essentially saying take over computers? Probably not. There's going to be, obviously this is a private school. They can kind of do what they want here versus the public schools. But I do find it to be a fascinating discussion on where we're going with AI, its capabilities, and how much the education experience is going to embrace this stuff.
I'm all about, technology and teaching our kids advanced learning, like things that we.
I'm going to start off by saying, yes, correct. AI is not going anywhere. I think people are missing the mark, and this school is missing the mark when we see that just a few days ago in California, a jury found Meta, YouTube liable for the mental health of a young lady and rewarded her and her family $3 million. I believe they're skating on the slippery slope, because how is it that in one instance with social media, but not with AI? You see what I'm saying? Like, the situation is a slippery slope, and having a school, no teachers that are there to teach, like, you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. I mean, you don't have to have a teaching degree. I believe this is why Trump and his administration wanted to change the Department of Education, simply because of these type of activities. We're taking teachers out. We're just taking, and I understand to a certain extent, because for so long these districts, these schools, these school boards have been removing teachers from teaching. Now you're getting AI to be involved in teaching our children, when we just seen in the past few decades, people have been allowing their children to be raised by social media. Now you're venturing off into AI replacing teachers. I think doses of AI, because that's where the world is going. So I'm not saying students shouldn't be introduced, because this is where the world is going, and this is nothing to be afraid of, right? But to empower a company and organizations to fully just, hey, no teachers, we're going teacherless. This is just simply AI teaching your children. Like, I think it's a very slippery slope. I can't see this happening like in mass. But for instance, with this school, the Alpha School, in children in small spaces, I mean, I don't know. It's a slippery slope. Like, at the end of the day, we got to get over it. We can't be fearful of what AI can be and what it can improve in our education systems. But I do feel that with the lack of teachers, or, this mass exodus of teachers leaving, parents not being, involved in our public schools, are deteriorating left and right, this is something that we will see in the future. However, the old way of teaching is not dead.
Obviously didn't get an education on. My only thing that comes to mind right away is, I know, and I've talked to Gabby about this, and I'm sure you will encounter this too as a parent, that when it's time to get your kids into school, even preschool now, especially if they're not going to a public school, it's like applying for college. And so in a lot of instances, they want your kids to write, right? They want them to even do little essays starting in like kindergarten and things like that. I just don't see how you'll be able to even write your name and things like that if a good portion of that educational component is on the computer. And in fact, I talked to a principal about this, and this is a big issue that they're having as classrooms become more technologically savvy and kids are on iPads and computers. Kids don't know how to write. They don't know how to do a 5 + 5 = 10. And so I just don't know if that becomes a problem later in life. I love the concept. I love the concept of a second grader being able to create a business that could be sustainable, maybe even for the rest of their lives, and start thinking about that. But some practicality you still need. You still may need one day to write your name.
I have this debate all the time with my listeners on the radio because I'm someone who still took penmanship, right? And I now argue that was an hour a day or however long it was completely wasted. What do we care if kids know cursive, right? This is not the way of the future. Why are kindergartners writing out essays anyways? I'm going to get a lot of pushback. I'm sure your viewers will disagree with me too. And a lot of people point to there is some skill and important brain maneuvers happening when you're writing things down, and no doubt. But is that the way of the future, right? Here's one point I'll make, because I know a lot of people are putting up their guard about this and saying, why could this possibly happen? We need teachers in the classroom, and I'm not going to disagree with that. My mom, who was a public school teacher for 40 years, is watching right now, so I'm not going to disagree with her on this. But when you have a classroom of 25 to 30 people trying to learn skills, no doubt some kids fall behind. Some kids are way ahead and are bored in the class. That is just indisputable. So if you have worked out an AI model that is going to be individualized to each person and can teach them some of these skills in 2 hours that used to take 6, and you free up more time for creativity, for planning, for collaboration, for the approaches of the 21st century where we're going to be, I could see the argument behind it. And this has become politicized because everything these days is. The education secretary, for as long as we have a Department of Education, they promised to shut it down eventually, went to one of these schools in Austin and heralded the founder and said this is a great thing. And of course, that received a lot of pushback from people who aren't happy with the administration on all sorts of levels. So this is going to be fascinating to see. And look, public schools use AI too. It's just more as a supplemental thing. It is not something that is driving the discussion, just driving the lectures. So this is going to be an interesting future in AI in general, especially as it impacts classrooms.
Well,
And I think that, like I said, people have to embrace it. It's not going anywhere. You can't be afraid of it. But this is only occurring, in my opinion, because of the impact of the poor management throughout all these decades of our public school systems. Like I said, teachers are running en masse, leaving en masse. Children, for a better part of almost 2 decades, young boys are can't even read at a 3rd, 4th grade level. And we're indoctrinating our children into woke mindsets that it's all about propaganda and being like wokeism than actually learning something at school. Just a few months ago, kids are just running out of school in droves protesting ICE. It was a school in Georgia, I believe, they can't even read. Their test scores are crappy, right? So when you take all of that into consideration and you have parents that want to instill some factors into their children, this private school and a lot of private schools across the nation are finding ways to make education a focal point, because the public school system has been disastrous for decades. And so I don't see nothing necessarily wrong with this situation with this school. I don't think that it shouldn't be no teachers, but I obviously have to do more research and educate myself on how this school actually works. But common sense is not played out. Common sense is still a factor. In fact, let me play a video of schools in Mississippi that has raised their literacy simply because they went back to common sense factors to help improve their children's education. They went from being at the bottom to being like number 6 in the country. Let's review.
So many years when we've come to Mississippi on mornings like this, they haven't always enjoyed the story we've come to tell. How they often rank lower than nearly every other state when it comes to healthcare, the economy, or education.
Good morning, Madison Station. Today is Tuesday.
But on this proud day, the good word is that their children are getting a great report card.
All right, second syllable is gram. What's our vowel? A.
Today, students in the state's public schools, who used to have some of the nation's lowest literacy rates,
Is it closed in?
are now reading at a higher grade level than most other students across America, with higher scores than New York, California, and Illinois.
All right, London, page 2.
The children here, just outside Jackson, are just 6 years old.
The fog is too thick. She can't tell.
This isn't something that happened overnight.
No, the Mississippi Miracle, our education miracle, it hadn't been happening overnight. You know, it took really 12 to 14 years of some work.
They go to Meridian. Do y'all know where Meridian is?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ellie Reeves is the mother of 2 young students and Mississippi's first lady. She spent years traveling her state, reading to children and encouraging her schools to produce better readers.
See, y'all are so talented.
They call it the Mississippi Miracle.
It truly is. In 2013, we were 49th in America in reading, and now we're number 9, which is crazy. 4th grade African American students are number 3 in math and reading, and then Hispanic students, 4th grade, are number 1 in math and number 2 in reading. I mean, that's amazing.
Across America, there is no one way that states are required to teach children how to read. But every year, American students in the 4th grade take a government test that measures their skills, the NAEP tests they're called. And 4th grade matters because studies show that kids who can't read at grade level by the start of 4th grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school.
Good morning, girls. You ready for a wonderful day, Miss Maria? Good morning.
Principal Kara Davis at Madison Station Elementary School is one of those warm and meaningful educators who the kids truly love.
Are you ready for a wonderful day?
And says everything changed after state lawmakers passed a law in 2013 that sent literacy coaches to work with teachers in the classroom. Today, nearly 60 of these specialists travel from school to school across the state.
There's been great resources. There's a huge investment in literacy trainings for our teachers across the state of Mississippi, which I can say 23 years later didn't happen when I entered this profession.
Amanda Malone is the state literacy director and explains that they also changed the way they teach children to read.
Tapping hands up. Tapping hand up.
No longer using pictures, and instead teaching them how to structure sounds with the letters they see.
Without.
And see, I don't think that is rocket science. I don't see this being rocket science. Most of the stuff that they're saying and that they're innovating within Mississippi is things that I learned when I was a child. And I think it's because people have gotten lax. Parents aren't raising their children. They're letting these tablets, they're letting all these outsource and worldly things dictate and teach out and pretty much raise our children. But when you have people that actually care from the top and actually incorporate in these public schools some standards, you see something totally different. And I don't think in each state in our country this is mandated. And so this is where our children are at. And so when you see the parallel of this, you see the parallel in your cities, and then you see a school like Alpha that is ushering in AI teacherless education. You can kind of see why we even gotten this far to have teacherless classes in schools. Now, in my opinion, I'm still for having teachers. I'm still, because we're human beings. And through our human experience, we're never gonna, this is something that we can never escape from. So I like I said, in doses, I totally understand this alpha school with AI and not having teachers, right? But I do know that as humans, we need other humans. We need other interaction. And so I don't think, and honestly, I don't think that's never going to go anywhere, to be honest. As much as we push for the advancement of technology, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But I can say that we have to embrace it. We don't have to let it take control, but we can embrace it. And like I stated earlier, I do feel that it is a slippery slope because of the ruling that took place in California with Meta and YouTube being liable for this young lady's mental health lawsuit. However, at the end of the day, for me, it starts at home. It starts with the parents. Just like we're involved into their activities when it comes down to sports, we have to continue to be involved when it comes down to their education, whether it's in a AI-powered class or it's in a public school, no matter what. But sippers, sippers, y'all tell me how y'all feel about this whole situation. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Leave a comment below. It's your boy Mercy. I'm out.